were called and are united by a common vision, which has now become a command that we cannot ignore.
Have you paid attention to a lot of the online reaction to the movie? Because it's been extremely well received since the reactions came out last week.
No, I just this will be my second day of press, and I've just started getting feedback since yesterday. So I love it. I love all the positive feedback, but I'm like waiting for the negative feedback because there's always going to be that. And so I try and I've always believed that I don't want to get wrapped up in the negative feedback, but in order to do that, I can't get wrapped up in the positive feedback either.
Yeah.
So I just don't want to get ahead of myself. I know once the dust clears, I just want people to love this film and really want this message to kind of seep through, and I really want this to be a conversational film. But with all films, I think whether they stand the test of time it remains to be seen. But I think that's what makes a classic film. If people are still watching this film 5-10 years from now and still having conversations about them, that's what makes a film great. So I try not to let myself get wrapped up into all the hype, whether it be positive or negative.
Yeah, I think that's what makes these kind of thrillers so good, because it's that kind of thing you can't help thinking if you were in that situation. It's such a grounded thing. Like, I hope we're never in that situation,
Right.
but like,
It's such a dark place to go.
Yeah.
Like even to have the conversation out loud is, but it's the messages in general. If you just take them out of this context and put them into a much simpler context, and it's still the message of sacrifice and of love and what love looks like, and those types of messages and how they're relevant to today's times. I think they're great messages, and there's things that can be talked about in conversations that don't have to be apocalyptic.
Yeah. And you've already said that this was obviously one of a really big challenge for you as an actor. Was that just the general role? Because Leonard's such a fascinating character, because he should be this kind of, you think he's going to be this brute that's going to overpower it, but there's a vulnerability and an emotional side to him. Right. Was that balance the biggest challenge, or was there something else when you were approaching this role?
It was the challenge, and it's a challenge that I've sought after, and this is why the first time I read the script, I was blown away. I'm not only blown away by the script itself, but by the opportunity, selfishly, as an actor, as a performer, because roles like this, they just don't come my way. I've never had a role to this, of this magnitude, come my way. I've had smaller dramatic roles that have opened the door to roles like this. But when I read this, and I was blown away by this character, the pureness of Leonard, and he's, again, like you said, he's this big, hulking, intimidating person, but really he's the most gentle, kind person you ever want to meet in your life. But that's what I loved about it, and that's why I wanted this role so bad. It was just like such a massive opportunity for me.
Yeah, and you've been. I was talking to Knight last week when he was over in the UK for this film, and he said he compared meeting you to being like Haley Joel Osment on Sixth Sense or James McAvoy on Split. It just felt right to him. He found the person that fit a role that he never expected to. How did you find working with him as a director? Because you've worked with distinctive filmmakers before, like Denis Villeneuve, James Gunn. How did he compare?
Well, for one, I can't, it's hard to make the comparison because I've never worked with James Gunn or Denis to this extent. I've never been a lead role in their films. Whereas with Knight, not only were we having conversations before the film, but every day on the film, we spent so much time together and literally just having conversations about the characters and about emotions. And this is what I love about Knight. He really challenged me in a way to perform with these layers of emotions. And he never came to me and gave me one simple note. Can you say something this way, or can you look that way? Nothing was a simple note. Everything was a full-on conversation. He'd come and he'd open up his notebook and he'd have the pages there, and we'd go over certain beats and we'd talk about thought processes and trauma and emotion, and also fighting and holding back certain emotions because we're dealing with other responsibilities on top of those emotions. So everything was there. It was like this long philosophical conversation, And he like challenged me every day where I was very unsure of myself. I was having a lot of self-doubt, and I just completely trusted in him and I relied on him. And every day I would say, are you happy with it? And he'd say, yeah, I'm happy, we got it. Trust me, we got it. And I say, if you're happy, I'm happy. But there were a lot of nights when I went home thinking, man, I felt like I was off. I could have done better. I questioned myself and I doubted myself. But I know that film, was going to make me a stronger actor, and also prove something, because I had stated all along that I wanted to be an actor, a respected actor.
Yeah.
And this was like, now this was kind of put up or shut up.
Yeah, and you say obviously, as I was talking about with Leonard, and you weren't sure, but was there a moment when you were filming where you're like, right, I get this now, or are you still a case that you're still not quite sure that you got Leonard as well as you did?
No, I'm still not sure. I really, I still like, Knight's been hitting me up because he started his press tour long before I started mine, and he's been hitting me up all along the way, just telling me, how happy he is. Every time he watches it, he just, he tells me how fortunate he was to work with this cast. And so again, he's just been trying to reassure me, because he knows I still have self-doubt and still feel like I could have done things differently, could have done things better. But there was just so much to process. But again, I know at the end of the day, no matter what, this made me a better actor, and that's what that's why I'm in this. This is why I search for these roles, because I want to be great at this, man. I can't find out how great I can be unless I have roles like Leonard.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel when you're watching a M. Night Shyamalan film, you're watching his film. He's got a very distinctive visual style, and in this, there's a lot of really intense close-ups and long takes. Were you aware of that when you're shooting, that this is exactly how he's going to film it? And does that change your approach to the performance, or does he kind of let you go and then you just see it as it comes?
Yeah, and it definitely didn't change my approach to the performance, because no matter what the camera, where it's at, what's going on, how long the takes are, I'm always fully immersed in it. Even if I'm off camera, I'm in it. But it was again, I was familiar with his style, and I knew this was going to happen. What I didn't know is I didn't know he was going to shoot it on film. And that became another layer of intimidation. But again, this was the challenge that I wanted, that I welcomed. But I knew it was going to be challenging, and it was. It wasn't easy. This was a very hard role for me. And remembering this dialogue, because Knight is really particular about his dialogue. He writes it a certain way, and he wants it, performed that way. So again, this was something that was challenging, but in the best way, in the best possible way.
And from every role, I imagine you do take lessons from each role that will take on to your future roles and your future acting career. For this one, it might be too hard to say, but was there a particular thing you took that you learned on this film that you feel will come back in future roles?
I did, and what I did learn, and it's still, it's a struggle, and I don't know if I could do this again without being directed this way, because a lot of times when you're performing and when you're sucked into a moment, you're in that moment, and you're living that moment, and you're feeling a certain way. But Knight constantly reminded me that although I was feeling a certain way, I still had a responsibility to be in charge, to be guidance. I have other people that I'm responsible for. So even if I'm being tortured inside and what I'm doing is just impossible for me to do and my heart is breaking, I still have to give an appearance that I'm in control. I'm in charge. Everybody's okay, and so that was a real struggle. That was juggling emotions, and so that was something I've never been asked to do before, and but I know that I can. I think that I accomplished that, and I only know that because I've been reassured by Knight that I did accomplish it, and every day I was asking him, "Are you sure I got it?" Because I wasn't really sure of what I was doing. But I know that if I'm asked to do that in the future, that I'm at least familiar with what that requires.
Yeah, and next up, obviously, on screen later this year, we'll be seeing you in Guardians 3. And I know you can't say a single thing about that movie, but has it sunk in yet that this is it for Drax? Has it sunk in, or don't you feel that will happen until after the press tour for that film and all the hype around that?
I think that's when it's going to happen for me. I don't know what everybody else's experience. I rapped in the worst possible way on that film because it was such a long journey. And when I rapped on that film, it was a Friday night in Los Angeles. And I rapped on the film, and I was immediately rushed off to get on a plane to go to Philadelphia to start filming Knock at the Cabin on Monday.
Okay.
So I never really got a chance to say goodbye to everyone. There was never that really moment to kind of let it set in and that realization and that closure. So it's, you know, it hasn't really hit me yet. I've been talking about it, but the emotions haven't hit me. And I know they will when I see the film and when I see everyone, and we're on a press tour and we're saying goodbye. Because there were days when we talked about it on set, and we took pictures and we made videos, and we knew that this, you know, I remember shooting the last scene that we were all going to shoot together. And it wasn't the last day, it wasn't even close to the last day, but it was the last time that the original version of the Guardians of the Galaxy were on set together. And we were all in tears. And so I'm sure that there's more of that to come, because it's a very bittersweet thing. It's like I feel very like accomplished and proud of what we did and what we left behind. But also I'm leaving behind people that, you know, I've been on this journey with for 10 years, and they're family to me now, and I love them like dearly. And a lot of times in this business, when you go your separate ways, you go your separate ways. So it's like leaving family members behind that I don't know if I'm going to see again or not. It's a hard thing, and it's just sad because we did this and we're so proud of what we did. And when we first started this journey, we weren't a big blockbuster franchise. We were quirky characters. Everybody was kind of expecting to fail. But we there, you know, me, Zoe, and Chris, and James, and Sean, we knew that it was special. It felt special. It felt good, and we were all just so proud of what we were doing. And we had so much fun at what we were doing, and we knew it was great. But you know, later on, everybody else found out. But we knew from the very beginning, those early days filming together, that was something special. And 10 years later, you know, seeing what we've accomplished is just. It's a very surreal thing, and it's a very bittersweet thing to say goodbye.
Yeah, I imagine the fans will be just as emotional to say goodbye, I'm sure, come May. Have you thought as well, obviously with next steps in your career, could you see yourself doing that kind of role again, in the sense of it's a role that you know you've got like a 2, 3, 4 movie commitment, or do you feel that now is the time that you'll be taking out singular roles to try something new? Have you considered that at all?
I'm open-minded to any role. Yeah, I'm open-minded to any genre. I'm just open-minded about my career. It just depends on what the role is, and it depends on who I'm working with. I really, you know, I just want to work with like very talented people, and it's really only to find out how good I can be. And I always, you know, I gauge my success on the success of the people I'm working with. You know, I don't need an Academy Award. I mean, it doesn't mean anything to me. Being in the conversation means something to me. Working with people who have won Academy Awards means something to me, because that's the way I can gauge of where I've come, you know, how far I've come since I started acting. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm open-minded to any role, and I would sign up for another trilogy. It just has to make sense. You know, and it has to be a role worth it for me, because, you know, a trilogy, you know, I'm 54 now. A trilogy is going to be over the span of 10 years, I'm guessing. So it just has to be worth it to me. But if it's the right role, of course, I would take it.